All right, in the past few lessons, we explored inner joins and outer joins, and now we're going to focus on left joins. So let's take a look at a visual representation first. That'll help us wrap our head around this concept. So as we know, an inner join looks something like this. That's where we focus on the values that exist in both of the data frames. If they exist in one but not the other, we don't care about them. And we also explored the full outer join, where we look at values that exist in either or both. Now, in this case, we've kind of been focusing on both data frames. They've both had equal weight in this operation that we've performed the merge on. Whenever we move to a left merge, we basically set one of the data frames as our main focus. So if we pretend here that A is our left data frame and B is our right data frame, what we're doing is saying we want to look at the values in a column in data frame A, and we want to see if they exist in data frame B. If they do, then great. Pull those rows over where we can join based on a common value. And if they don't exist in data frame B, then just put null values. So we're looking, primarily our focus is on the values within data frame A. Now, if we have values in data frame B that are exclusively there, we really will never care about them at all when we're doing a left join, because we're only caring about the values in the right data frame or data frame B if they already exist in data frame A. So this operation is very similar, basically the same thing as a VLOOKUP operation in Excel. We're looking for a value in a left-hand data set, trying to identify it in a right-hand data set. Whatever values in the right-hand data set, whatever exists there, doesn't matter. It only matters as long as we can find a match to the left-hand data set. So it's kind of basically using one data frame as the foundation and another one as just kind of an additional reference point to pull in an additional data from. So a B in this case, the data frame on the right gets a little bit neglected because its exclusive values are basically ignored. Only the values in data frame A serve as the base for which we want to pull information for. And a right join is basically the process in reverse. And in reality, they're basically the same thing, because you can basically do a left or right join and swap them by simply flipping the order of the data frames and repeating the exact same process. So throughout these tutorials, I'm only going to do a left merge because it's basically the same thing. If you just want to apply the process in reverse, what you can do is just flip what data frame you're considering as your left one and which one you're considering your right one, and just continue calling the left operation and just swapping the data frames to establish which one you want to serve as the foundation and which one you want to serve as the additional data points that you want to pull in. But this is all kind of visual and kind of big picture. Let's see this in practice, and that'll give us more clarification on how exactly this works. So as I mentioned, it operates very similar to a VLOOKUP operation. So let's see what kind of thing we can perform a VLOOKUP operation on here. I'm going to re-execute our code. Let's take a look at the first couple rows of our week 1 data frame. And let's also take a look at the first 3 rows of our foods data frame. Finally bringing that in here. So this is the kind of operation that a left join is perfect on. You can see here that in the week 1 data frame, we have a unique food ID. And that food ID is tied to the exact same food ID here, and we have additional information related to that food item in this separate data frame. So if we want to pull this information over to here, for example, if we want to say, oh, this food ID is 1, but how do I know what that item is and what price that is? Oh, I can say, well, look up this one right here and pull in all of the other values from that row into my original data frame. Again, the values in my second data frame are only relevant if they exist in my first one, which is week 1. So pretend we have a food item here like a food ID of 1000 that isn't present at all in week 1. In that case, we're not going to care about it in a left merge because week 1 is only going to look at the food IDs here, and these are the only ones that are going to matter. If they exist in my foods, then it's going to bring them over. If they don't exist in my foods, it's going to basically say null or not found. But the exclusive values in foods are irrelevant. We're focusing on week 1. We're making this our foundation, and these are the values that we actually care about. So now let's execute this process. I'm going to call the merge operation again on week 1. I want to merge some kind of data into my week 1 data frame. And the data frame that I want to merge with is foods. And now we're going to run into that how parameter again. We've set it to inner and outer so far. Now we're going to set it to left. And again, left in this case represents the data frame that we're calling the method on, and right represents the data frame that we're supplying as well. And this is what I was talking about a few minutes earlier, where if we wanted to merge with a focus on foods, we can do something like this, but it's really the same thing as setting this to left and just flipping around foods and week 1, because it's really just a matter of where you view each data frame and so on. So I'm going to bring this back to week 1 and bring this back to foods. I generally just don't use right. I use left singularly, and then just set my data frame that I want to merge into always as the one that I call my merge method on, which is what the left data frame is. So now once again I have a pretty lucky occurrence, because in these two data frames we have different columns, but the ones that we want to match on have the same name. You can see food ID here and food ID here are written the same way, same case sensitivity and all that. So I can once again use that on parameter and give it the column that I want to search for common values in, and that's going to be food ID. Now when I execute this, we'll see that we're basically taking this data frame. You can see that we have the first 3 rows the exact same. For example, customer ID 537 and food ID 9 are represented right here. But based on the values that it found in foods, it dragged those matching values over. So for example, where we have this food ID 1, it looked up 1 in my food ID column in foods. It was able to locate it, and thus it brought over sushi and $3.99 as the new values in the food item and price columns. Now, if the food ID existed in week 1, but it did not exist in foods, it wouldn't be able to locate it in my right data frame, and we would have a bunch of null values present here. In this case, they're all valid food IDs, so we can see that they're all going to have the proper operation pulled over. So we can see here now that we have that operation. All of the values from the right data frame have been pulled in. Now there's one additional thing I want to show you here. I want to provide an additional parameter here, and we can see here it's called sort. By default it's set to false, and if I set it equal to true, what's going to happen is it's going to sort on the column that we provided as our matching column, where it's looking for both of those values. So because we provided food ID as our matching column, we matched on food ID, but all of those were scattered because we kept the original order of our left data frame, which was week 1. But if we wanted to see them sorted immediately in the order in which in the column, rather sorted by the values in the column by which it's matching, we can just pass this sort equals true parameter into here. It's basically a shortcut to avoid calling the sort values method. And now we can see all of the customer IDs who ordered food 1, and we can see that predictably the values that have been pulled from the right data frame, which is foods, is consistent. For 1, it's always sushi and $3.99. If I come down to 2, you can see it's always burrito and $9.99. And of course, predictably it would be, because it's just locating those food IDs on the right data frame, dragging them back in to the left. Now again, this operation creates a brand new data frame, so nothing is being overwritten. So if we wanted this to represent our new modified data frame and we wanted it to be stored in week 1, we would have to reassign it back to week 1 with the equal sign, and then if I take a look at week 1, we have that modified data frame where we've combined those values from foods back into week 1 based on those common occurrences in the food ID column. So that's a quick introduction to left joins. We'll dive into another example in the next lesson, and it will also allow us to dive a little bit more into some additional parameters that are available on the merge method when the column names in the two data frames that we're merging vary. So I'll see you there.